The headlights cut through the mountain fog like knives through gauze, illuminating nothing but more darkness ahead. Clover pressed her forehead against the cold passenger window of the van, watching the pine trees blur past in an endless procession of shadows. Exactly 365 days had passed since her sister Maya vanished into these mountains without a trace. 365 days of unanswered questions, sleepless nights, and the crushing weight of not knowing. "You sure about this?" her boyfriend Derek asked from the driver's seat, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. In the back, their friends Marcus, Jenna, and Riley sat in uncomfortable silence. They'd all agreed to come. Maya had been their friend too, but Clover could feel their reluctance radiating like heat from a fire. Coming back to Coldwater Valley wasn't just ill-advised. According to the locals they'd passed in the last town, it was borderline suicidal. The valley had a reputation. Whispered warnings about people who ventured too deep into its woods and never returned. "I'm sure," Clover said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Maya sent me coordinates the night she disappeared. She wanted me to find something. I owe it to her to look." The van's tires crunched over gravel as they turned onto an overgrown access road. The GPS had died miles back, but Clover had memorized a route from the maps she'd studied obsessively for months. Through the fog, a structure materialized like a ghost taking form. The abandoned Coldwater Valley Visitor Center, a relic from when tourists actually came here, before the accident started. Before people learned to stay away. They parked in the weed choke lot, the van's engine ticking as it cooled. The visitor center loomed before them, a 2-story structure of wood and stone with dark windows that reflected nothing but the void. Someone had boarded up the main entrance, but teenagers or vandals had long since torn the planks away. The door hung open like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. "This place gives me the creeps," Riley muttered, pulling her jacket tighter. She was right to be nervous. Even the air felt wrong here. Too still, too quiet, as if the valley itself were holding its breath. Clover was the first through the door, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness of the lobby. Dust motes danced in the light, and the smell of rot and mildew assaulted her senses. Nature had begun reclaiming the building. Vines snaked through broken windows, and mushrooms grew in the damp corners. Tourist pamphlets from 15 years ago still sat on the counter, their cheerful promises of scenic hiking trails now a cruel joke. "Look at this," Marcus called from near the main desk. He'd found an old visitor log, its pages yellowed and warped. Last entry is from June 2010. Says a family of 4 checked in for a camping permit, and... He trailed off, his dark eyes widening. "And what?" Jenna pressed, moving closer. "They never checked out." None of them did. "Look, dozens of names, all check-ins. No checkouts going back months." A chill ran down Clover's spine that had nothing to do with the temperature. She pulled out her phone, checking the coordinates Maya had sent. "According to this, we need to go upstairs." The old ranger's office. The staircase groaned under their weight, each step protesting their intrusion. The second floor was darker, more oppressive. Doors lined a narrow hallway, most of them closed. Clover's flashlight found the ranger's office at the end of the corridor, its door slightly ajar. She pushed it open with her fingertips. The office was frozen in time, coffee cups still on the desk, paper scattered as if someone had left mid-work and never returned. But it was the wall behind the desk that made Clover's breath catch. A massive map of Coldwater Valley covered it, marked with dozens of red X's and handwritten notes. Photos were pinned around the edges, missing persons flyers, some recent, some decades old. And there, near the center, was Maya's face staring back at her. "Oh my God," Clover whispered, stepping closer. Her sister's photo was connected by red string to other images, other names. Whatever Maya had stumbled onto, it was bigger than just her disappearance. Guys?" Derek's voice came from the hallway, tight with fear. "Did you hear that?" They all froze, listening. At first, there was nothing but the wind whistling through broken windows. Then they heard it. Footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from downstairs. Heavy boots on hardwood. Someone else was in the building with them. Maybe it's another hiker, Riley suggested weakly, but nobody believed her. The footsteps stopped. In the terrible silence that followed, Clover heard something else. Breathing, ragged and wet, like someone drawing air through damaged lungs. Then came a sound that would haunt her nightmares, the sharp scrape of metal on wood. "We need to hide," Marcus hissed. "Now." They scattered into the offices, Clover and Derek ducking into a supply closet, Marcus pulling Jenna into a bathroom. Riley wedged herself behind a filing cabinet. Through the crack in the closet door, Clover watched the hallway, her heart hammering so hard she was sure it would give away their position. A figure emerged at the top of the stairs, and Clover's blood turned to ice. It was wearing a mask, not a Halloween mask, but something worse, something primal. A crude face carved from dark wood, twisted into an expression of agony, with empty eyes that somehow still seemed to see everything. The figure was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing dark clothes covered in stains that looked sickeningly like dried blood. In one hand, it carried a hunting knife that gleamed wickedly in the ambient light. The masked figure moved with purpose, checking each room methodically. Clover pressed her hand over her mouth to stifle her breathing, feeling Derek trembling beside her. Through the crack, she watched as the figure passed their closet, paused, then continued toward where Riley was hiding. Riley must have sensed it too, because she bolted, bursting from her hiding spot and running for the stairs. It was a fatal mistake. The figure moved with inhuman speed, crossing the distance in seconds. Riley's scream was cut short as the knife found its mark. Her body crumpled, blood pooling on the wooden floor, spreading like spilled ink. "No!" Jenna's voice rang out, thick with horror. She'd emerged from the bathroom, unable to stay hidden while her friend died. The figure turned toward the new sound, and Marcus tried to pull Jenna back, but it was too late. The killer was on them, the knife rising and falling with mechanical precision. Marcus fought back, landing a solid punch that would have dropped a normal person, but the masked figure barely flinched. The knife found Marcus's chest, then Jenna's throat. Derek grabbed Clover's arm. "We have to run. Now." They burst from the closet, racing down the hallway as the masked killer turned toward them. Clover's legs felt like lead, each step taking eternity. Behind them, she could hear the heavy footfalls gaining ground. They reached the stairs, taking them two at a time, Derek slightly ahead. In the lobby, the front door beckoned, moonlight streaming through, salvation just yards away. Derek reached the door first, yanking it open. He turned back to grab Clover's hand, to pull her through to safety. That's when she saw the second figure emerge from the shadows beside the door. Another mask, another knife. Derek's eyes went wide with shock as the blade pierced his side. He stumbled forward, blood spreading across his shirt, his hand still reaching for Clover even as he fell. "Derek!" Clover screamed, dropping to her knees beside him. His blood was warm on her hands, his face already pale. She looked up at the two masked killers now advancing on her from both sides, their empty eyes promising nothing but death. The knife was cold when it entered her chest. Pain exploded through her body, white-hot and all-consuming. She fell backward, her vision darkening at the edges. The last thing she saw was the wooden mask looming over her, tilted almost curiously, as if studying her final moments. Then darkness. Not peaceful, not gentle, absolute nothingness that swallowed her whole. Clover's eyes snapped open. She was in the van, her forehead pressed against the cold passenger window. Derek was driving, knuckles white against the steering wheel. Behind them, Marcus, Jenna, and Riley sat in uncomfortable silence. "You sure about this?" Derek asked. The question hit her like a physical blow. She spun in her seat, staring at him, then at the others. They were alive. All of them were alive, looking at her with concern. "Clover, you okay?" Jenna asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." Clover's voice caught. Her chest felt fine. No wound, no pain. She looked down at her hands. "Clean. No blood. What time is it?" Almost 9, Derek said. Why? 9 o'clock. The same time they'd arrived before. Clover's mind reeled. She remembered everything. The visitor center, the mass killer, the deaths, her own death. The memories were crystal clear, too vivid to be a dream. But here she was alive, whole, and apparently traveling back in time. Derek, stop the van, she said urgently. What? We're almost there. Stop the van. The panic in her voice made him brake immediately, pulling over to the side of the narrow road. Everyone stared at her. This is going to sound insane, Clover began, her words tumbling out. But we can't go to that visitor center. There's someone there, killers with masks. They murdered all of us. I died. We all died. But somehow I'm back here and Clover, Riley interrupted gently. You've been under a lot of stress. Maybe the grief is, I'm not crazy, Clover shouted. I know how it sounds, but I remember everything. Riley, you hid behind a filing cabinet. Marcus, you punched one of them. Derek, you made it to the door first. She looked at each of them, desperate for them to believe her. Please, we cannot go to that building. The silence in the van was deafening. Marcus and Jenna exchanged glances. Derek looked torn between concern and confusion. But Riley's expression had changed. There was something in her eyes, a flicker of doubt. What if she's right? Riley said quietly, This place has a reputation. People disappear here. What if she had a bad dream? Marcus countered. Come on, Clover. You can't expect us to turn around because of a nightmare. It wasn't a nightmare. Clover's hands were shaking. She could still feel the knife entering her chest, still see Derek bleeding out on the floor. Please, I'm begging you. Let's just leave. We can report Maya's case to the authorities. Let them handle it. We've been over this, Jenna said, her voice soft but firm. The police gave up months ago. If there are answers about Maya, they're in that visitor center. We promise we help you find them. Clover looked at each of her friends, seeing the determination in their faces. They wouldn't turn back, not based on her word alone. She had to think. If this was real, if she'd somehow been given a second chance, she needed to use it. Warn them, yes, but also prepare. Change what happened. Okay, she said finally, trying to steady her breathing. Okay, but we do this differently. We stay together. No one splits up. And we arm ourselves. Grab anything we can use as a weapon from a van. Now you're just being paranoid, Marcus said, but he sounded less certain. Humor me, Clover insisted. Please. They continued to the visitor center, but this time Clover made them park the van facing the exit, ready for a quick escape. She found a tire iron in the back, handed Derek a heavy flashlight, made sure everyone had something, anything, to defend themselves with. They thought she was overreacting, but they indulged her. The visitor center looked exactly as she remembered, dark, forbidding, wrong. Every detail matched her memory perfectly, which only confirmed her growing certainty that this was real. She'd lived through this before. Stay close, she whispered as they entered the lobby. The same dust, the same rot, the same oppressive silence. She led them upstairs, moving faster this time, heading straight for the ranger's office. The map, the photos, Maya's face, all exactly where they'd been before. We get what we need and we leave, Clover said, using her phone to photograph the map and the notes. No exploring, no. The footsteps started. Heavy boots on hardwood, coming from downstairs. That's them, Clover breathed. Hide now. This time they didn't question her. They'd all heard it, all felt the wrongness of that sound. They scattered, but Clover had learned. She pulled Derek into a different closet, one with a better view, positioned near a fire escape she'd noticed this time. The masked figure appeared at the top of the stairs. Same mask, same knife, same methodical approach. But Riley didn't run this time. Clover had warned her, told her exactly what not to do. The killer checked the rooms, found no one in the obvious places. Confusion seemed to ripple through its posture. "Now!" Clover shouted. They all burst from their hiding places at once, 5 against 1. Marcus swung a chair, connecting with the figure's head. It stumbled. Jenna threw a heavy bookend. Derek rushed forward with his flashlight. For a moment, it seemed like they might win. Then the second figure appeared at the top of the stairs. "Run!" Clover screamed, pushing them toward the fire escape she'd spotted. But Marcus was too slow, too brave, trying to hold them off. The first killer recovered, grabbed him. Jenna tried to help, and the second killer moved in. Their screams followed Clover, Derek, and Riley as they crashed through the fire escape door. The rusty stairs rattled under their feet. They were 1 floor up, 1 floor from freedom. Clover went first, taking the steps 3 at a time. Behind her, Riley slipped, crying out. Derek stopped to help her. That's when Clover heard it. More footsteps, this time coming from below. A third figure emerged in the darkness at the bottom of the fire escape. "There's more of them." Riley sobbed. They were trapped. Killers above, killer below. No way out. Clover looked around desperately and spotted a window on the landing. Second story drop, but maybe the window. She didn't wait for agreement. Just smashed it with the tire iron and jumped. The impact drove the air from her lungs. She landed in overgrown bushes that scratched and tore, but broke her fall. Derek landed beside her a second later, groaning. Riley appeared at the window, hesitating, looking back at the approaching killers. "Jump!" Clover screamed. Riley jumped, but she wasn't as lucky. She landed wrong, a sickening crack echoing as her leg twisted beneath her. Her scream of pain brought the killers running. Derek tried to help her up, but Riley's leg wouldn't support her weight. "Go!" Riley gasped through tears. "Get to the van. Get help." "We're not leaving you," Derek started. One of the masked figures dropped from the fire escape, landing with inhuman grace. Then another. They advanced slowly, knives glinting. Clover grabbed Derek's arm. "We can't save her if we're dead. Come on." The decision would haunt her forever, but she made it. They ran, leaving Riley's screams behind them. The van was across the parking lot, impossibly far. Behind them, footsteps pounded. 1 killer, then 2, then... Clover risked a glance back, 3 of them, spreading out to cut off escape routes. They reached the van. Derek fumbled with the keys, dropped them, retrieved them with shaking hands. One of the killers was closing fast, knife raised. Derek got the door open, threw himself into the driver's seat. Clover ran around the passenger side, yanked the door handle. Locked. "Derek, unlock it!" she screamed, pounding on the window. He was trying to start the van, didn't hear her. The killer was right behind her now. She could hear its breathing through the mask. Clover spun, swinging the tire iron with everything she had. It connected with the mask, cracking the wood, but the killer barely stumbled. The knife came up. The van's engine roared to life. Derek looked up, saw Clover in danger, and his eyes went wide with horror. The door locks clicked open. Clover yanked the door, diving inside just as the knife scraped against the metal. Derek floored it, the van's tires spinning, kicking up gravel. They crashed through the overgrown parking barrier, onto the access road. In the rear-view mirror, Clover could see the 3 masked figures standing motionless, watching them escape. No pursuit. They just stood there as if they knew something she didn't. What the hell was that? Derek gasped, his voice breaking. What were those things? Where are the others? Riley, Marcus, Jenna? Dead. Clover said numbly. They're all dead. We have to get to town. Call the police. The van rounded a curve, and Derek slammed on the brakes. Clover lurched forward against her seatbelt. In the road ahead, a 4th masked figure stood perfectly still, directly in their path. "Go around!" Clover shouted. Derek jerked the wheel, but the narrow mountain road offered little room. The van's tires hit softer on the shoulder, and suddenly they were sliding. the steering wheel spinning uselessly in Derek's hands. The world tilted as the van went over the embankment, tumbling through the darkness. Glass shattered, metal shrieked. Clover's head cracked against something hard, and pain exploded through her skull. The van came to rest on its side. Clover hung from her seatbelt, disoriented, tasting blood. Beside her, Derek wasn't moving, his head lolled at an unnatural angle. No. Derek. Her voice was weak. She reached for him, but her arms wouldn't work right. Everything felt distant, fading. Through the shattered windshield, she saw a masked figure approaching, knife in hand, taking its time. "Please," she whispered, though she didn't know to whom she was pleading. "Please, not again." The knife came down. Pain. Darkness. Nothingness. Clover's eyes snapped open. She was in the van, her forehead pressed against the cold passenger window. Derek was driving, knuckles white against the steering wheel. Behind them, Marcus, Jenna, and Riley sat in uncomfortable silence. "You sure about this?" Derek asked. This time, Clover didn't hesitate. "No. Turn around. Now." "What?" Derek glanced at her, confused. "Turn the van around. We're not going to that visitor center. We're going straight home." "Clover," Jenna started. "Listen to me." Clover's voice was sharp, commanding. "I know you think I'm crazy, but I've lived through this twice now. No matter what we do, if we go to that center, we die. All of us. There are multiple killers, they're coordinated, and we cannot win. The only way to survive is to not play their game." The van fell silent. Marcus leaned forward. "What are you talking about? Lived through it twice." So Clover told them. Everything. Both timelines, every death, every mistake they'd made. She described details she couldn't possibly know. The exact layout of the visitor center, the map in the ranger's office, the way Riley had hidden, how Marcus had punched one of the killers, the fourth figure on the road. She spoke with such conviction, such specificity, that doubt crept into their faces. "That's impossible," Jenna said, but her voice wavered. "Is it? In a valley where dozens of people have disappeared? Where something is so wrong that locals won't even talk about it?" Clover met each of their eyes. "I'm not asking you to understand how. I'm asking you to trust me. Please, let's just leave." Derek's hands tightened on the wheel. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Riley's quiet voice broke the silence. "I believe her." "Riley," Marcus started. "No, listen. My grandmother used to tell stories about this valley. She said time works differently here, that the valley feeds on death, that it traps souls in loops until they learn to escape. I always thought they were just stories to scare kids, but..." She looked at Clover. "What if they weren't?" "That's insane," Marcus said, but he didn't sound convinced anymore. "So is everything else about this place," Jenna murmured. She reached forward, touching Derek's shoulder. "Maybe we should listen to her. Come back with police, with help." Derek pulled over again, this time putting the van in park. He turned to face Clover fully. "If this is real, if you really have been through this twice, then running might not be enough. What if the loop keeps resetting? What if we wake up here again tomorrow or next week? What if the only way out is through?" The thought had occurred to Clover, had been gnawing at her with each passing moment. What if running didn't work? What if they were trapped here, destined to repeat this night until they found the right answer? "Then we need to be smart about it," she said. "We need to understand what we're dealing with, not rush in blind like the first two times." "What do you suggest?" Marcus asked. Clover pulled out her phone, opening the photos she'd taken of Maya's last messages, the coordinates, everything she gathered over the past year. "Maya sent me these coordinates before she disappeared. She'd been investigating the disappearances, same as the ranger whose office we found. They both discovered something, some pattern. We need to figure out what that is." They spread out in the van, using their phones to search for information about Coldwater Valley. The cellular signal was weak but functional. What they found was disturbing. The disappearances went back decades, almost a century. They spiked every fall around the same time period. And they all followed a pattern. Groups of young people, usually 5, always at night, always near the visitor center. It's like a ritual, Riley breathed. 5 victims, same time every year. It's been happening since the 1920s. Why 5? Jenna asked. Clover had an idea, a terrible one. She remembered the masks, the methodical way the killers moved. What if it's not about killing us? What if it's about replacing them? 5 masks, 5 victims. What if... She didn't get to finish. The van doors suddenly flew open, all of them at once, though no one was there. Before they could react, fog poured in thick, unnatural, glowing faintly with an eerie green light. It filled the van in seconds, burning their lungs, choking them. Clover tried to scream, but the fog filled her mouth, her throat. Beside her, Derek was clawing at his neck, gasping. The others were no better. The fog was alive, intelligent, dragging them down into unconsciousness. Her last thought before darkness claimed her was a simple, desperate prayer. Let this not be the end. Clover's eyes snapped open. She was on the ground, cold concrete beneath her. Not in the van. Somewhere else. She sat up quickly, her head pounding. They were inside the visitor center, in the lobby, surrounded by her friends who were just beginning to stir. What? How do we get here? Marcus groaned, pushing himself up. The front door slammed shut with the finality of a coffin lid closing. Outside, they could hear footsteps circling the building. 1 set, then 2, then 3, then 4. For sets of footsteps, for killers, surrounding them. We're trapped, Derek said, voicing what they all realized. Clover's mind raced. They'd tried running. They'd tried fighting. They'd tried avoiding the center entirely. None of it had worked. The valley, whatever malevolent intelligence controlled it, kept pulling them back, kept resetting the scenario until they played their role. The ranger's office, she said suddenly. The map, the notes. There has to be something they were missing, some way to break the cycle. They moved as a group, staying tight together, making their way upstairs. Every shadow seemed to hide threats. Every creak of the old building set their nerves on edge. But the killers didn't attack. Not yet. It was as if they were waiting for something. In the ranger's office, Clover studied the map with new eyes. The red X's marking disappearance sites formed a pattern, a rough circle around a central point deep in the valley. And there in the center, a single notation in faded ink. The Old Lodge, Original Sin. There's something else here, Jenna said, pulling back a loose section of wallpaper. Behind it, someone had carved words directly into wall, desperate scratches that must have taken hours. The valley demands 5. Every 20 years, 5 souls to feed the hunger. Break the chain. Find the first. End where it began. The first, Riley whispered. The first what? The first victims? Clover's phone buzzed. Impossible. There was no signal here. But there was a message from Maya's number, sent 1 year ago, somehow just now appearing. The Old Lodge, 1925. 5 founders died. Their deaths curse the valley. We're all just echoes, Clover. Find their remains. Free them. Only way to break free. I'm sorry I couldn't finish it. Love you always. M. Tears blurred Clover's vision. Maya had known. She'd figured it out. And it had gotten her killed, trapped in whatever hell this valley had become. A crash from downstairs made them all jump. The killers were inside, hunting again. The Old Lodge, Clover said urgently. We need to get there. It's our only chance. How? Derek asked. We're surrounded, and you said we die every time we try to leave. Clover looked around the office, thinking fast. Fire escape. Back exit. The killers seemed to follow patterns, attack routes. What if they could break the pattern entirely? The roof, she said. There's an attic access. We go up, Not down. Make our way across the roof line to the next building. Get to the woods from there. They won't expect it. It was crazy, but staying was certain death. They found the attic access in the supply closet, a pull-down ladder that groaned under their weight. The attic was worse than the rest of the building. Rotted beams, gaps in the floor, the smell of decay thick enough to taste. But there was a window at the far end, and beyond it, the roof of an adjacent storage building. The jump was terrifying. One by one, they leaped the gap in the darkness, landing on questionable shingles that cracked and shifted. Riley almost didn't make it. Her injured leg from the previous loop still somehow ached, but Marcus caught her hand, pulled her across. From the storage building, they lowered themselves into the woods using an old drain pipe. Every moment, Clover expected to see a masked figure appear, to feel a knife between her shoulders. But they made it. They were in the forest, away from a visitor center for the first time across all the loops. Which way? Jenna asked. Clover checked the coordinates Maya had sent, overlaid them on her phone's map. 2 miles northeast. Stay close, stay quiet. The forest at night was its own kind of horror. Trees pressed close, their branches like grasping fingers. Strange sounds echoed through the darkness. Not animals, something else. Something that mimicked footsteps and breathing and whispered words just below comprehension. They found the trail more by luck than navigation, an overgrown path that wound deeper into the valley. How long they walked, Clover couldn't say. Time felt fluid here, elastic. Minutes might have been hours. The old lodge emerged from the fog like a ship from troubled waters. It was massive, a sprawling structure of stone and timber that spoke of wealth and ambition. But it had been abandoned for decades, its windows empty eyes, its doors hanging open like a scream. This place is worse than the visitor center, Marcus said, and he was right. The lodge radiated wrongness, a psychic weight that pressed down on them. But they'd come too far to turn back. Inside, the lodge's grand lobby was a testament to decay. A magnificent staircase rose to unseen upper floors. Portraits lined the walls. 5 faces, 5 people staring down at them with expressions frozen in time. The founders, Riley breathed, moving closer to read the plaques. Thomas Coldwater, Sarah Chun, Robert Ashford, Elizabeth Rowe, Jonathan Pierce. Founders of Coldwater Valley, 1925. What happened to them? Derek asked. Clover found a plaque on the wall, tarnished but readable. In memory of our founders, who gave their lives that this valley might thrive. October 15th, 1925. They died the day the lodge opened. Jenna realized. All 5 of them, same day. Not just died, Clover said, finding another notation in the dust. Murdered. There was a scandal, covered up, a business partner who'd been cheated, who came here with revenge in mind. Killed all 5 and then himself. And cursed the valley in the process. Riley finished. Blood spilled in anger, souls trapped by violence. Classic haunting setup. So where are they? Marcus asked. Where their remains. A door at the back of the lobby hung open, revealing stairs descending into darkness. Of course. The answer was always in the basement, in the dark, in the last place anyone wanted to go. They descended, flashlights barely penetrating the gloom. The basement was vast, a labyrinth of storage rooms and tunnels carved into the bedrock. And there, in a central chamber, they found what they were looking for. 5 stone cairns, arranged in a circle. Each bore a name, the 5 founders, their final resting place hidden away, unmarked, forgotten by the world above. And around them, carved into the stone walls, were desperate messages from previous visitors. How many groups of 5 had made it this far? How many had tried to break the curse? Now what? Derek asked. We found them. How does this free us? Clover approached the cairns, her hand trembling as she touched the cold stone. She felt it immediately, a connection, a resonance. The founders weren't at rest. They were still here, still suffering, still demanding their price. Every 20 years, 5 souls to mirror their own deaths. An eternal cycle of vengeance. We have to give them peace, she said. Really honor them. Acknowledge what happened. How? Jenna asked. Clover thought of Maya, of all the people who disappeared into this valley, all the loops and deaths and fear. The founders had died in anger, died unavenged, died and been buried in shame while the valley profited from their work. No wonder they cursed it. We tell their truth, Clover said. She pulled out her phone. Still no signal, but the camera worked. She began photographing everything. The cairns, the names, the messages on the walls, the evidence of the murders covered up for a century. We document this. We make sure the world knows what happened here. Give them what they never got, justice, remembrance, truth. As she photographed, she spoke aloud, addressing the spirits she could feel pressing close. Your deaths were not meaningless. You were not forgotten. We see you. We honor you. We will tell your story. The others joined in, each speaking to the founders, acknowledging their pain, promising to share their truth. It felt like a ritual, spontaneous and necessary. The temperature in the chamber dropped suddenly. Their breath misted in the air. The flashlights flickered. For a moment, Clover was sure they'd made a terrible mistake, that the spirits were angry, that then they appeared. Not the mass killers, but the founders themselves, translucent, fading, but there, 5 figures standing among the cairns, their faces finally at peace. Thomas Coldwater nodded to them, a gesture of gratitude. Saracen smiled sadly. They were letting go, finally releasing their grip on the valley, on the living, on their endless cycle of revenge. The spirits faded, dissolving like morning mist. The oppressive weight lifted. The lodge groaned around them, and Clover realized with sudden alarm that the building was collapsing. Without the spirit's presence to hold it together, decades of decay were catching up all at once. Run, she screamed. They raced back through the basement, up the stairs, through the lobby as the ceiling began to cave in. The front door was ahead, and beyond it, the first light of dawn. They burst out of the lodge as it collapsed behind them, timber and stone crashing down in a thunderous roar. They lay on the grass, gasping, covered in dust, but alive, truly alive. The sun was rising over Coldwater Valley, and for the first time, it looked beautiful instead of threatening. Is it over? Riley asked. Did we break the loop? Clover checked her phone. It was October 16th, a full day after they'd arrived. Time had moved forward. They'd escaped the loop. But more importantly, she had a signal, strong and clear. And there in her messages was a text from a number she'd never seen before. Thank you. I can rest now. They all can. Don't come back to the valley, sis. Live your life. Be happy. That's what I want. Clover's tears came freely now, a mix of grief and relief and release. Maya was at peace. They all were. The walk back to the visitor center took hours in the daylight, but it felt different now. The valley was just a valley, the forest just trees. Whatever darkness had gripped this place for a century had finally lifted. They found the van where they'd left it, untouched. As Derek started the engine, Clover took one last look at the valley in the rearview mirror. Until dawn, she whispered. They'd survived until dawn, and in doing so, they'd freed not just themselves but all the souls trapped in the valley's endless night. As they drove away, none of them looked back. They'd upload the photos, tell the authorities, make sure the founder's story was finally told. But for now, they were just 5 friends who'd survived the impossible, carrying the weight of those who hadn't. The valley faded behind them, finally at rest, finally free. And though Clover would never forget what happened there, she knew she could move forward now. They all could. Until dawn. They'd made it until dawn.